Hey, I'm Charles Soule. You're watching SuperWonder Legacy.
Hey, this is Jason J. Lewis, Superman from Justice League Action, and you're watching SuperWonder Legacy.
You're strong.
I know.
Are you a sight for sore eyes?
It's nice to have someone who likes you for being you.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I am here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello.
And I finally got Britt to agree to discuss Dark Knights of Steel. I had to, Britt. I had to.
I mean, you're going to be discussing it mostly, but just for the sake of the episode, yeah.
Yeah, so we're also going to be comparing it to a storyline called JLA Riddle of the Beast, which is actually, it's essentially Dark Knights of Steel, but way better. And it's way more, it's like, the art is also way more like painted and beautiful. It looks a lot like Alex Ross. So the idea of this, again, both of these are essentially like, what if DC was Game of Thrones / Lord of the Rings is essentially that. And see, the thing is, it works in concept. It's just the problem is when Tom Taylor uses it as a chance to act out his really crappy like ships.
Twitter brownie points, basically.
Twitter brownie points, yes, because oh boy, when you talk about when you bring up the whole Supergirl thing, because again, I love where he goes, oh no, Zala's not Supergirl, and I'm like, really? Why does she look just like Kara?
Exactly. I mean, you could have been a little bit more distinctive with the design. And the fact that she looks that 16-year-old appearance as we see in Mainline, it just makes it worse.
What you could do at the very least is, I don't know, at least change her hair color, something. She looks exactly like Kara, and then want me to believe that just because you change her name, she's not Kara.
Right.
And you'll see why Britt and I are so hung up on this later. But basically, again, so we'll move to the core concept. The core concept essentially is, okay, so JLA, Riddle the Beast. It's one graphic novel. It's not an ongoing series. And honestly, again, it's one of the coolest. Like, this one really feels like an epic, like Lord of the Rings style book. And it's like painted by like a crap ton of artists that do artwork for and designs for like gaming and like comic books. So it's really cool. It's very high fantasy. And the idea of focusing on Robin as like the audience, like the audience character is actually really cool. And it really feels like, and the funny part about it, Britt, is that when you're reading this book, even though there's multiple artists that each contribute, everything flows together really well. It's like, you know how like when you read a trade paperback that collects different single issues that have a different artist, and oftentimes it's visually jarring. With this, it's like they flow together really well.
Right. And that's pretty much the draw of this. You know, you get that sort of abstract art, and that is what made DC so unique, because they had such great art in I would say their art became very flat during Rebirth. You know, everything was very much house style. But even during New 52, they had house style, but it still stood out.
Yeah, it's like I was talking to a buddy of mine, and it's like New 52 art is a type of art where if you point to any panel, you can identify that as from the New 52.
Yeah, it just feels like everything is unique. So with this book, it's very abstract and, done on purpose. And again, the flow, and that worked for this certain title. With Dark Knights of Steel, I would say that the art was pretty, as what it was,
Yeah, it's
and you
not
did have that.
horrible. I don't want the audience to think that we hate the art in Dark
Right,
Knights
no,
of
it's
Steel.
very pretty. It's very pretty. It's just the fact of it feels like it wants to be um more of like that high fantasy anime, sort of feel, which is again, you still are attracting this day and age audience, but I just don't feel the uniqueness of it all, and especially again when you see the design, well, Bruce and Clark kind of look like twins. Kara, she still looks the same. Diana, she looks young, but she just looks like a generic Amazon, kind of warrior woman. Everyone else just looks the same, so it really doesn't feel that different.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, speaking of look, so I recently read All Winter, which is essentially a Dark Knights of Steel kind of sequel, but it's taking place in the Viking land. The protagonist is Deathstroke. The way this book is done is most of it is in black and white because in the Viking land, all color has been gone because that was the result of Mr. Freeze freezing Nora. But it takes Slade and his son Jericho to restore color to the world. It's actually really dope.
Hmm.
But
Wow.
but yeah, it's like that's the thing about see the way I would kind of compare the two, Britt. Riddle of the Beast is way more mature, while Dark Knights of Steel is very like
Cartoony.
yeah, it's like comparing like Power Rangers to whatever is the more mature version of Power Rangers. I had to.
Yeah. That's a pretty good analysis there. Yeah, we can go with that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like that's the way I kind of thought about it, and it's like, and again, it's like the series is good. Although I argue now, let me ask you this: so, what do you think of the new artist taking? Gotta say, compared to Prutry, I think it's a mistake to not go to go with Otto Schmidt. Beyond the fact that the guy has a very sketchy record.
I mean, his art is very unique. I would say that it depends on the story, on the character that he might draw or something like that. Because yeah, sometimes his art is a little just. And then yeah, in addition to his very sketchy background, I think that was a very bad decision. Um, that you can't really separate the art from the artist there because his sketchiness comes from his art. And yeah, mm, I don't know. I'm not really again, it depends on the character and the story where his art flows. He did the Tomorrowverse designs, and we saw how flat that kind of was. It was good in some parts, but it was essentially flat, and that it went the cheap route of animation and stuff. So yeah, it really just all depends.
I'll give you that. So then we get to the similarities between the two stories. Now, beyond the fact that they're both taking place in a medieval world. So
Exactly, that's pretty much it.
well, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like they're both like Game of Thrones. It's like here's the thing though. When I'm looking at Dark Knight at Riddle of the Beast, the other part of it, and we'll get into this later in the presentation, Riddle of the Beast actually doesn't like assassinate characters like Dark Knights of Steel does. Because when I was rereading it recently, I was like, why is this so held up? Because it's like, so spoiler alert, Batman is half Kryptonian because Jor-El had an affair with Martha Wayne. And I'm like, what?
And it was so kind of odd, when you had super bad fans shipping them. And it's like, you just don't know that they are going to be soap opera half brothers. That really just that discourse was something. It was basically like Game of Thrones with
For
those
the wrong
shippers
reasons.
for the wrong reasons, yes. But I would say, yeah, in Elseworlds you can do different things, different dynamics, different controversial decisions, plot points and stuff like that. But it's some things that is kind of like, even in Elseworlds, it's okay. You're going a little bit too far where it does go into fanficky, territory.
Hmm.
And it's just something that I think Editorial should rethink, you know.
Exactly. Well, then you get into the whole Diana and Zala thing, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's like one of my issues with this. Now, let me be very, because when I was putting together the presentations, I was reminded. Sorry about that. In the story of Dark Knights of Steel, Diana's mother is killed by white Martians. So when Diana sees Alfred, who is Martian Manhunter in this storyline, all of a sudden she gets all bloodthirsty. It's like, you will never see the light of day again. And then Zala has to talk her down and go, it's okay. It's not going to bring your mother back. And I'm like, what?
And that is another thing. Well, never mind. I'll save that for that particular topic.
You could say it right now if you want.
Oh, well, it was about the shipping part of the being contradictory, that it's acceptable for Diana to not only be in the background of Dark Knights of Steel and be portrayed as basically, yes, she's the princess and everything, but her story is aligned too much with Zala. Her motivation is about being with Zala. And yeah, her temperament and everything is dependent on Zala. But if she was with Cal or something like that, all hell will break loose. But because she is with a woman, it's okay. And I just think that that's very telling, that these controversial or these misguided decisions of Diana's character, it shouldn't be based on who she's shipped with.
Yeah,
And
exactly. It's like, again, it seems like some fans, if their ship is supported, they will look past the most like heinous stuff just because, oh look, they're together.
yeah, and it's kind of like shipping Diana with the racist murderer that turns into a cat lady. She, just because she's a woman, then it's okay. But how she was created and portrayed all this time until 2016, that really does not erase none of that prior.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, so back to Dark Knight Steel, so, or Riddle of the Beast. The idea, it's like the Riddler delivers cryptic riddles that guide the entire plot, which I like. The use of the Riddler also to be like the prophesier, that is actually real. Because I like in Elseworlds when they can amplify characters that maybe are seen as a joke, or maybe don't necessarily get their time of day in the main continuity, and that's the joy of Elseworlds. Whereas in Dark Knights of Steel, it's like, I mean, I do like the idea of using John Constantine, so that actually works. But it's like, then the story goes on, and I'm like, okay, what is going on with this thing? But you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, the narrative is it goes in and out, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to more similarities. It's the world is very divided in both stories, and I like how it takes like a common thread, much like both of these stories can be taken. Dark Knights of Steel even more so literally, because they literally do it in the book. The formation of the Justice League. Again, they literally do in the book, except for some reason Lois is part of it for no reason. Again, it's Tom Taylor. He will force cringy characters in no matter what. But I like but it's like, I definitely dig the way like the Trinity is also used, and it's like it brings them back to who they are. Although Superman was the okay, credit to Tom Taylor. He was the champion of the press, because the idea is like superhumans are like seen as like witches, and it's like Superman is like, maybe we shouldn't be putting them in a dungeon, but he doesn't really do much about it.
I mean, of course, you can do surface level Superman talks, what should be done, but a lot of times he doesn't really execute that notion of what he's talking about, or it's another character, and it really falls back on at least with Dark Knights of Steel, Batman. You know that because Batman is pretty much I would say he is the Jon Snow of this story, as the chosen one. The one that's going to be possibly the king of the kingdom or whatever like that, or the main hero, and Clark ends up, or Cal ends up being second fiddle, as he always is. Then of course, but it's okay as long as he ends up with Lois, of course, and Diana is with not Kara.
Yeah, it's funny. Her name sounds just like Zala. Isn't that interesting? And with this one, they both have. Yeah, go ahead.
There was actually a typo.
Oh,
a
really?
couple of them in the first issues, that Zala was actually spelled as Zara. So, and I think it was a time where it did say Kara. So yeah, they definitely know that it's a confusion there, that this is supposed to be an OC. Even in Bombshell, that Supergirl, Kara something, she is with Lois. So it's kind of like when they want, a certain representation, especially for Kara, or, Lois or Diana, then I really don't think that it would be a wise decision to have Kara, mainline. She's 16 years old. She looks at Diana as a sister or a mother figure. Sometimes well, I don't really know her dynamic with Lois, but sometimes it is that big sister vibe too. And you ship them to be the opposite of not wanting them with Cal. I just don't. It's very misguided to me.
Oh, well, the whole damn story is misguided, Britt. We all know that, and I like how both sides use like a war or an invasion to bring people together. That definitely works, and it's like, again, this is the other thing. There was so much potential with Dark Knights of Steel, and I feel like people only hold it up. They act like it's so original, like, oh my gosh, DC's Game of Thrones, and then. Even you're the one that first showed me about this story in a very early episode of the show. And I was like, oh, this already exists? So I'm like, so you basically took an already existing story idea and just bastardized it.
Right.
Some could say that that's Tom Taylor's whole career. So then you get to key differences. One is more mature and more like methodological. One is more mainstream, I would say, in terms of like way. Now, again, I like the Riddle of the Beast story, using different painters as time goes by. Each scene kind of has its own like feel to it. But I also, again, like Putri's art. Again, we said the art here is gorgeous. Some of the facial expressions do look kind of wonky at times, like particularly on Diana. But it's like the differences here is like with Riddle of the Beast. Again, they don't do any BS like, oh my gosh, what if Jor-El cheated on Laura? And I'm like, who would want to see that?
Right.
Well, then again, Britt, we are living in a world where people tried to praise James Gunn turning the Kryptonians into like Viltrumites.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
But honestly, that comes from a very deep-rooted xenophobic, mindset of the fan base, which is sort of, is very mind-boggling, because you would think that being fans of this character who's supposed to represent being a refugee or, an immigrant, you wouldn't have that, but instead they are praising the fact that he rejects the notion of being a refugee immigrant and demonizing, his true nature and his heritage. So, yeah, it's just the way of the world in reality to see how backwards things are becoming.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to more key differences, such as the world building in Riddle of the Beast is much more like intense. It's again, the book literally starts excuse me, with a Middle Earth style map of it. And in Dark Knights of Steel, they do a lot of world building, so I'm not going to say they don't. It's just the way I kind of see it. Riddle of the Beast does it more substantive.
Yeah, it's I would say I think that what Dark Knights of Steel, I think Tom Taylor, he tried to like go about with, as I said, certain elements to remain the same, and also is certain characters that he obviously shows that are his faves.
Mm-hmm.
But with Riddle of the Beast, you get this vast scope of, it's just a story where everyone gets a perspective regardless. It's not anyone is picking a favorite.
Yeah, exactly. It's like everyone gets like some type of chance to shine, which I really enjoy. And then the thematic complexity, Riddle of the Beast is like unity against evil, fate, and prophecy and stuff. And in Dark Knights of Steel, again, there was some potential here with the idea of fearing others and like fearing people different than you, which I really like. The whole idea about how two races or two peoples are manipulated into going to war for like another like purpose. Again, a lot of this. See, here's the problem. A lot of the stories that I hate the most are based on the had potential and they failed at meeting potential. In my mind, a lot of Dark Knights of Steel failed to meet that potential.
Yes, because again, it was mostly about shipping, having these more clickbaity, Twitter moments than truly going with the story.
After all, here's the funny part. Notice how no one ever talks about the actual plot of Dark Knights of Steel?
No, no, they don't.
All they talk about is that one panel of Diana kissing not Kara. Interesting how that ends up. So then we get to the editorial and creative context. And again, because what people have to understand is that early 2000s and even in the 90s per se, there was a lot of the Elseworlds where they were like doing, what if Batman became Green Lantern? What if Batman became Superman? What if all these different characters, blah, 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 blah. So Elseworlds was a big thing at this point. And they basically said, no, just treat these stories like they're in their own continuity. You don't have to read anything. And just the creators, you could do whatever you want. And then you get like, now let me ask you this, Britt. Which one is worse? Dark Knights of Steel or Injustice? You have to pick one. You can't say both.
Hell, Injustice. That ain't even a question.
Good. I want to make sure. But it was like, I get the feeling that they wanted to make their own alternate continuity. Because at the time, remember, Injustice 2 hadn't even been announced yet. I mean, actually, yeah, it was with Dark Knight Steel. But it's like, we still didn't know if like Injustice was continuing. So they're like, oh, crap, make another alternate universe.
Right. I mean, with Injustice, the thing is, it's still bases on Mortal Kombat mindset and Nether Realms and stuff. And you're going to have female characters that are treated poorly, that they end up being the villains in, overall. But this, I would say that, I mean, Tom Taylor still has that certain, he claimed that, with seeing Wonder Woman and everything, that's not how he thinks of her, but he still have those elements within. Injustice was like you could get away with it because he was just writing a tie-in, and it was the game first.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get to Deceased and you see how Diana really doesn't have a role, she, fights, but she ends up getting brutally murdered by zombified Superman, and then she becomes the worst zombie, at that point though.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
She becomes the vampire queen.
well, he didn't write that, but yeah,
But still.
pretty much still with that. And then you have now Dark Knights of Steel. She is again codependent on Zala, and her temperament, her anger issues, her rebelliousness is just from Zala. And she doesn't really have a character arc on her own.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like even Zala, she does. There's not even a character arc on her own for that character either. It's just like, oh, she's the one that dates Wonder Woman, right? That's all. She's become Lois Lane.
Exactly.
That's the hilarious part about that. I just realized this. So then we get to reception, and for Dark Knights of Steel, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It's like it's like Game of Thrones, and it's like it's a success in terms of Elseworlds, which is why it was inevitable it was going to come back. And you notice again when it was teased that it was coming back, what's the first thing people wanted to see?
Zala and Diana, unfortunately.
Yes. Exactly, because that's all people seem to care about, particularly one fan on Twitter. And then Riddle the Beast got more of a mixed reception, which I can, with the multiple artists, again, I praise that. However, I can see why, if you're used to one storyline having one art style, I can definitely see why that might be a little disruptive. So it's not necessarily like I agree with that criticism, but I understand it. And then it's like there are some times where like it takes forever to get to a certain part of the storyline. So I do get that. Now we get to the fan reception for Dark Knights of Steel. So most of it is for like this, or either mixed to positive, with some people saying it's great, but the execution is not that good. And it's like it's the same thing of an Elseworlds, and like not a lot of characters get a lot of development. Whereas with Riddle the Beast, it's more high fantasy, and it's more of like, oh, this is like this is, I would say, more of a cult classic than Dark Knights of Steel will become.
Right. And honestly, the more we talk about it, the more you see that a lot of the modern stories are just rehashes from older stories. This story, Riddle of the Beast, it was one, again, because it was so abstract, it didn't get as much attention as it probably, deserved. And it was also just and this is a one shot, so it's not anything extended to where you would think about it too much. But with Dark Knights of Steel, again, it's a modernized version of Riddle of the Beast. And it's pretty art, and it's also extended. And you have these tie-ins, or semi sequels and everything like that. So it's sort of extended itself, which is why it's more talked about. But again, as you said, the overall story isn't so much talked about. It's just a particular shift or moment, for Twitter. That's it.
Exactly. Because if Superman fans actually talked about it and were like, okay, wait a minute, you made Jor-El a cheater? No. So it's like when you actually look at a lot of these character points, it falls apart, and it's not as like blind sweater territory like Injustice is. However, there is like a metric crap ton of like loopholes in this storyline.
Yeah. And again, when you have this certain idea, if your goal is just to have brownie points, then yeah, you're going to have these drop-offs or whatever within the narrative, and it is going to feel incomplete.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get to the final comparative. It's like, yeah, it's like Riddle of the Beast is a little bit more of like the epic and grand scale, and then the other one, Dark Knights of Steel. See, the thing about Dark Knights of Steel is, again, the art is consistent, which that does aid some people in actually watching it and reading it and enjoying it. I get that. And it's like the big thing about this is like it's a storyline that, and this is the other thing that I will grant Dark Knight Steel over Riddle of the Beast. The world building in Dark Knights is a little more natural than Riddle of the Beast, because with Riddle it seems too much like they're trying to like pile in all this world building on you, whereas with Dark Knights of Steel it's like, okay, slowly, and I'm like, oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, you have a decompressed like narrative because you have to fill in these 12 issues. But is that a good thing or a bad thing? It just all depends.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, and again, Dark Knights of Steel does feel like Game of Thrones, complete with BS pairings and stuff, but it does have that. It has less of a mythical tone, but it still has that like medieval tone, if that makes sense.
Right.
So then we get to the reason why Britt and I are talking about it. So tell us about Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship in this storyline.
Okay, so within this, they are betrothed. And it's they do have a love for each other, but it's also, of course, within that time, most marriages are for political reasons. But it is, strained, or it becomes a problem, with all the betrayal. And I believe it's Diana thinks that Cal betrayed her, and they become distant, and the whole war thing breaks out. Then once they know the truth, by the end they do reconcile, and it's pretty much open ended.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they end up, coming back together. So with that, you see that their relationship remains, that way even in Elseworlds. Clark and Diana are always naturally drawn together, even if it is the circumstances of a betrothed marriage, but or being betrothed. But at the end, it is a natural respect for each other, and love, things like that, that makes their relationship what it is. And even with the distancing, it makes sense. It's not something contrived. We never want Cal and Diana's relationship to be all, peaches and rainbows. We never want that. We want them to have certain conflicts, and it may distance them for a minute, create a strain, but they can work through it.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, you do have that more mature notion of a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to the betrayal itself.
Okay, yeah. So it's pretty much thinking that, it isn't a trickery here, as all medieval um story goes. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet, in a sense. But you have that still them going through believing, that their love was real, and it was something there to reunite them at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Which I like that it's more of like, because of the emotion stuff, because of the like, because it shows that, and I think it shows that like, even if it's open ended, they did actually love each other, because why would they come back together at the end?
Right. I mean, again, that is something that we love about their relationship, that is multifaceted. You can start it, stop it, or put it on pause, and they'll still naturally pick up, and it'll become stronger. Or you see that progression, of how they learn from any conflict. that comes their way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I love the idea that like, and again, it's more of like them coming back together for the good of their people, but also good for themselves. Now here we go, Britt. We got to talk about Diana and Zala. So here's before I do this, let me narrate, because the two pictures on the left are those scenes. So Diana basically goes, "Whereas you predict your name will be forgotten, erased," and then she's about to like behead him, and then Zala says that's not necessary. So I'm like, can we stop making Diana the warrior woman for the love interest to calm down?
Exactly. So within this, we can, breeze through this. It's basically, like I said earlier, Diana's temperament is it has to be restrained by Zala. She does not have a character arc on her own. She is very reactive. And the thing is, Diana was written as rebellious against Hippolyta. Hippolyta warned her to calm down and don't go after Zala. But Diana didn't listen. She went after her anyway, only thinking of her, and essentially put her mother in danger. Um, and that is honestly guilt that she has to deal with, but we don't see that. We see her again only caring for Zala, and she is an accessory to her. Um, and like I said, the only thing why this is being accepted is because it's Kara. She's a woman. But if it was a male love interest, as I said, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, would be in hell.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like it's like what is it about the Wonder Woman fan base that whenever they want to post a picture of Diana with a woman, I know why, but I'm just asking. They always pick like the worst images they could pick, like the Artemis picture, and they go, "Well, we ignore that context." I'm like, "No, you can't ignore the context image of her kissing someone that was like her, like let's say surrogate mom, let's say that." And then in this one, it's like Tom Taylor can say whatever he wants. You designed her to look exactly like Kara.
I think that it was definitely a shock value type thing. It was something to get people to, of course, read it, but at the same time, the I think that it's a 50-50 split, and you can honestly tell which fans read the comics and which ones don't. If they would read the comics, they would know that Kara, even though, DC is now trying to age up their characters, so now she's like 21, but for the longest she was 16. And Diana, she is, it, I would say, let's see, Diana is at most she was around 28. Now she's supposedly 32. So even that is still, you know, regardless, is very questionable. And then again, their chemical relationship is Diana being a sister or mother figure to Kara. She even says that, she thinks of Diana as a mother. So it's kind of like trying to see them, romantic, whatever. It really, it doesn't work.
Well, again, I want to emphasize the fact that Kara came to Earth as a teenager, and she met Diana when Diana was, let's say the human equivalent in post-crisis is like 40. I know it's not, but let's just say that.
But she wasn't that old. She was around. She's 15 young. She's 15 years younger than Cal in post-crisis, and so she was at least, well, the age that she is now. She was 28 to 32, around that range.
Yeah, but again, Kara was 6 freaking teen.
Let me see. Burns. Let's see. Burns. Run on Wonder Woman. I think he says that she was 25. Kara came within Loeb's run, right? for that entry. So yeah, she's around 32.
Okay, well, 32 versus 6 frickin' teen.
Yeah.
So I'm like, either way, you're not being those allegations, Cara Diana shippers. I'm sorry. That I'm gonna say it. That is gross. If you want Diana to be with a woman, fine. At least pick one that doesn't put her on a DC Comics special of To Catch a Predator.
Yeah, I mean, well, they did, as you said, my whole thing is that Kara her, is like her mother figure. And even with Diana and
too.
Artemis, from Earth 1, to say, for Artemis to straight up say that she saw her as a baby, changing diapers or whatever like that, that's
That's
not
why
a
what
good
I
look
like
either.
to do when I see people use that image, I always love to go into the comments and post that picture and just go, "Are you sure?"
Right.
I may be petty, but at this point, I'm sorry because these people are the same people that say that Diana being with Superman goes against all she is, but really these people are just sexist that don't want Diana to be with a man, plural. Period.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, and the point again, this is the only thing people remember from Dark Knights of Steel. I never see anyone talk about the actual plot of the story, which for the most part is okay. There are some like, what the hell? Like again, the Kents raising, the Kents tending to Bruce Wayne, although the Kents tending to like all of the metahumans is pretty good. I'll take that. But it's like, again, the one image that people think of is these two kissing. That's it.
Right.
So, and I love when a certain Twitter user, Britt knows who I'm talking about, first thing this girl asked Tom Taylor is, "Oh, will this relationship be shown?" And then he didn't even answer. It would be hilarious, Britt, if they never really do anything with this in the sequel.
No, Tom Taylor definitely, he likes to get brownie points from Twitter. So he's definitely going to do something. It's just
But the
what he
funny part,
does.
Britt, the funny part about that, Britt, is like, will they keep them together? Here's why I'm asking that. Because people's excuse is, oh, it's Elseworld, so DC will have no problem with it. But with Absolute, Kelly Thompson is like, DC, I write her one way, but DC won't acknowledge it. So I'm like, have the rules changed where they're like, okay, we're not doing this, period?
I think she said that because Absolute Wonder Woman is so popular, is basically becoming mainstream. So that's why there's restraints there. But with Dark Knights of Steel, I mean, everyone sees that it's a medieval time and it might be popular in that realm, but not anything like with merchandise and, things like that.
That's true.
It's not truly a mainstream type title. That's the thing.
Okay. I can see that.
Even with Red Sun, when they changed it within the animation, you can tell that was an Elseworlds, and it's something that even if it is popular for Superman, the movie isn't popular, but the story itself is. So you see in the original story, Diana did have feelings for Clark. So yeah, it definitely just with their metric was potentially something that could be mainstream for them.
That's true. So my thinking is, it's like even this combined with the aversion to having her in the other thing. So if you saw, did you see the preview for the Pride issue, Britt?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Did you see the preview for the upcoming Pride issue?
Oh, you mean the one where Nia is like Diana, then you have a fake
Nia
Steve.
and Galaxy go into like a fake version of Themyscira, and everyone's like, look, it's Cassia. And I'm like, she's in a fake world, ladies and gents.
She's in a fake world, and it's also just a rehash or their dream of, Wonder Woman year one, especially with having, Nicola Scott's art. But I mean, that's pretty much all she is. So it's really, to me, it's just not something, I don't know, to praise.
Let me put it this way. And Britt, I think this is pretty obvious. Trust me, I'm not going to make you read and review that issue. I hope you know that. That's not I'm not that petty, but the point is, Jared was right. So then we get to the awkward of continuity versus reinterpretation, because again, here's the thing. I understand that like you want to like reinterpret characters, but here's the thing. There is such a point where where like you want to make this version unique that you fundamentally break the characters, like James Gunn reinterpreting the L's as evil. He said, I wanted to be able to put my stamp on Superman, and if you and he listed things that in his mind you can't change, even though you could, like Lois, like the underwear, like the S curl. You could change that. And then and then he's like, but I had to put my stamp on it. I'm like, no, just do Superman. Or it's like with Wonder Woman, and like practically every Elseworlds, this one included, she's always the bloodthirsty warrior, except for like Kingdom Come and some other examples.
It's because, yeah, that is very much very questionable on Gunn's part, because I mean, your only big change was making the L's evil, which is very, again, xenophobic and anti-immigration or immigrant. So that change, for you to feel that everything that gives this appearance or this feeling of glorifying, as an American or something, or well, they did change the logo as Truth, Justice, and the Human Way, which human means American, So basically, what he was saying was everything that is human and American is good. We can't change that. But anything outside of that, which is, the L's, then yeah, we can disregard them, throw them under the bus, uh, and it shouldn't be a problem. But yes, it is a reoccurring debate almost every day on Twitter. Um, but yeah, it is some liberties that you can take for Elseworlds that make sense for the character, as long as it's something that's not like Injustice, where you just go so overboard. There's actually a tweet that's going around showing how even with the very now distasteful graphics of Injustice 1, but you see how you can kind of stomach um, the evil version of Wonder Woman versus because you have, Prime Earth Wonder Woman. But going into Injustice 2, going into the, comic tie-ins and seeing that evil version of Wonder Woman, and how, yeah, every where you turn, you see her with the sword and shield. You see her being the one that needs to be, um, I guess, held back, and making it seem like she's the one that's going to kill without any type of remorse or second thought. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
DC's fault. It's DC's fault for pushing these narratives. Yes, Elseworlds gave us basically Superman and Wonder Woman, showed the interest of that relationship, but the thing is, it connects also to the main line, where it is a positive thing. But when you take elements from Elseworlds and it isn't known that it isn't a positive thing, where you do have a darker story that's more aggressive and it changes the characters, then yeah, you are going to end up with a big problem. And that is pretty much why Injustice should be buried. Honestly, it should not be an Injustice 3. Um,
Yep.
and
Yep.
anything else, especially because you have DCU and you're trying to rebrand this cinematic universe, and also just build up the trust of the fan base. You can't build up the trust of the fan base and have the fan base care and invest in these characters if their only version of the characters are evil versions.
Well, and not only that, you don't need Injustice anymore when people say they want a DC fighting game. KO!
That too. Exactly.
Literally, Scott Snyder just, again, Britt, say what you want about Scott Snyder. He has done DC the biggest favor by making Injustice irrelevant.
I mean, yes, he did. Even though I still say that DCKO was very superficial and it was, yeah, it didn't really have a story so much to it.
It was a tournament, yeah, but again,
but it does give the idea that, okay, this is, if you want the characters to mindlessly fight each other, at least let it be that.
In fact, Britt, what I saw when Injustice 3 was like leaked that it was coming out, people are like, why do Injustice 3 when DCKO exists? And I'm like, yes. In fact, there were counter theory, like rumors coming out that actually it wasn't Injustice 3. It was a KO game that was going to come. I would be surprised. It would be hilarious if when KO came out and they saw how well it sold, they actually redid the game to make it KO. I don't think that happened, but still, it would be hilarious because then it would be like, yeah, the Injustice universe is going to die a slow, painful. Well, actually, no, I don't want to die a slow, painful death. I want it to die as fast as possible so I can forget this universe ever existed. Like, again, if I could do a crisis of, if I have a right for DC to do a crisis event where multiverse worlds are getting destroyed, I am going to blow the F up of the Injustice universe to the point where it's smithereens.
Yes, it is very much deserved.
That's what it is. Because it's not even important. I'm like, okay, evil Superman, Wonder Woman, Ultraman, Superwoman. We already have these evil versions. You don't need any more. But anyway, so then we get to the emotional framing, personal, not symbolic, because it's like, so the thing about this is like, that's why with Wonder Woman, the interesting thing about Dark Knights of Steel, she doesn't do anything. She's just there.
Exactly.
That's the thing about that. It's like Batman and Superman advance the plot, and Zala does, but Diana doesn't do it. In fact, even they did like backup stories that show like them all playing. Diana's nowhere to be seen.
Right, because essentially they don't care for her. Well, Taylor doesn't.
So you're telling me Tom Taylor doesn't care for Wonder Woman? Man, where have I seen that before?
Right.
It's like, that's the funny part about this. It was kind of funny. I literally just like found that out. I thought about that. I'm like, yeah, if you took Wonder Woman out, short of that panel that every superficial fan just holds up as this is what Dark Knight Steel did, what did she actually do?
Exactly.
I'm like, what the hell? But it's like, so let's take a moment and compare the two SuperWonder relationships, because I know that because we have this unique opportunity, Britt. One SuperWonder relationship, well, I'm going to call one SuperWonder and one knockoff SuperWonder, because let's be honest, that's what it is. The one that you and I like is all about friends coming together that understand each other very well, who can help each other in different ways. One, be able to have some fun in life and not be so work focused, and the other one to embrace what makes you unique. Okay, that's great. That's the first one. It's not about like eugenics or anything like that. The second one is just so you can have an image of Supergirl and Wonder Woman kissing. That's it.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So Britt, which one is the superficial one?
Right. Of course, it's the one with the bootleg car.
And again, you make it so Diana, I get it that Hippolyta was killed by a Martian, but Diana would not be like, and no one will ever remember your name. No, that's Tom King Wonder Woman level of cringe.
Right.
So I'm like, what? This is why, again, and I'll repeat this when we get to we are going to talk about the Jeff Loeb Wonder Woman book in the reviews, but this is why I say again, and Robert disagrees with me on this, but I know you agree with me on this. writers that have written Batman heavily before should not be allowed to touch Wonder Woman or even use her in their stories because they always screw it up every single time. There has not, as far as I have read, there's not been one Batman writer, and by except for maybe Scott Snyder, but even he has his moments where I'm like, what? None of them have given a truly good portrayal of Diana.
I mean, honestly, none of them. No writer who cares for Batman or Superman would give her a good story.
George Perez cares about Superman. He wrote Superman.
I mean, but I would say he was a Wonder Woman writer first.
Okay, so. That's very true. I'll give you that. Oh, Grant Morrison. Actually, Grant Morrison is the exception. He wrote. Well, actually, no. No. He's an exception for Superman, not for Wonder Woman. Hell no to Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
I mean, even though their JLA run was actually pretty good with Wonder Woman, but yeah, I'm like, I thought Grant Morrison. I was like, no, Jeff Johns is certainly not good at writing Wonder Woman.
You can go down the list, and none of them are going to. They have to be Wonder Woman writers first, and then go to Batman or Superman. But it can't be in reverse.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually I'll give one. There is one Superman writer that actually told a pretty good Wonder Woman story that may be a story that we discuss on this show, because I think you would genuinely like this. J. Michael Straczynski, he wrote Wonder Woman Odyssey. It was the last story before the Flashpoint reboot. I think you would genuinely like this storyline, Britt.
Maybe we'll see.
But it's like, the point is that notice how long it took me to find a writer that even remotely got Diana.
And that remote is quite distant.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so many different. It's like, yeah, I'm looking at my shelf right now, and it's like, yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm like, there's no one here that I think really got a solid, like, nailed Wonder Woman after previously writing Batman or Superman. It's like, yeah, you're all right. You need writers that have written Wonder Woman first and written successful runs. Like, let me put it this way. Kelly Thompson on the main book, I think, could do it. Kelly Thompson wrote Superman. That would actually be interesting. But I think she could do it. But it's like, yeah, you definitely need, like, Wonder Woman writers first in order to do that. Wow. And it's like, I love where Jeff Loeb is like, so because the trailer for that book, actually, you know what? I'll save that until we get there, because it's hilarious. So then you get to direct comparison. And I know it's like the purpose of these books is to do the DC Game of Thrones. Well, Riddle the Beast came out before Game of Thrones, I think. So
yes, it did.
Yeah, but it's doing the Lord of the Rings, but it's the same concept. And it's like, they wanted to have like these super developed worlds, which again, they both have pretty rich worlds. So you could do that and do a lot of really cool stories with it. It's just that, and you bring up a good point with the role identity, Britt, that the characters in Riddle the Beast are archetypes first. That is because they went more mythological. In other words, these are, again, the way I always consider DC is that these are the gods. Whereas with, actually, you know what? Here's the way it works. Dark Knights of Steel took a more Marvel approach, which is interesting because Tom Taylor also wrote heavily for Marvel.
Well, that explains a lot.
That definitely explains a lot. Yeah, exactly. And the audience reception is comfort. The thing is, what I will say, what I like is that more and more people, when they discover Riddle of the Beast, they are now, it's more of like, that's why I call it a cult classic. It may have been like not necessarily as beloved back then, but I feel like now it's getting a little bit more of a renaissance, which I'm happy for because it definitely deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you read Dark Knights of Steel, which again, most of it is at worst meh. But it's like the parts where it gets really bad are the parts that people keep emphasizing. That's the big point here. So then we get to the direct comparison continued. So you also have like the relationship beats and everything like that, and the Clark and Diana thing. I also, again, like the focus on Robin being the audience's like gateway character, because it's kind of cool seeing like the world, this type of world again, through the eyes of like a young kid going through like this adventure. Whereas with Dark Knights of Steel, they do a lot of interesting stuff. Like, again, see, the Dark Knights of Steel storyline is not in and of itself a bad storyline in and of itself. It just has really bad elements. Like the whole idea about Laura and Jor-El coming to Earth with Cal, that's actually kind of cool the way they do that. It's just then the story goes on, Britt.
Right.
And it's like, geez. So do you have anything to add about the comparison between the two before I move on to the next slide?
No.
Okay. So then we get to deeper insight, and it's like it's like the Elseworlds of the past was more of like the mythology like era and stuff, where the other one again is more like, for lack of a better term, it's more grounded. And yeah, you do bring up a good point. It sounds like Riddle the Beast sounds like the story, like an old veteran warrior from that battle will tell their kids one day, or they'll open up a story like the way all these like high fantasy stories starts off, and it's like, in the beginning this happened. And it's like with Dark Knights of Steel, I see, here's the thing. It's, again, I've said this before in the show, but it bears repeating. It's a much more superficial version of Riddle of the Beast. It's like, look at that, look at that, look at that, look, I made them kiss, look at this, isn't that awesome? And I'm like, okay, but you're really pushing it, Tom, which he pushes a lot of stuff, trust me. Remember when, to make John relevant, he made him bi?
Sorry, I was on mute. John, I thought he already was.
No, he wasn't.
Hmm.
He really wasn't. Until that kiss, he wasn't. Because that kiss is what solidified young John, which I'm like, I still think...
you mean John? I thought you meant John Constantine.
No. John Constantine is. John Kent is. It's like, it's kind of funny. Taylor has become a worse version of Rucka, where he always has to make, whenever he does an Elseworlds, one of those characters has to be reinvented like that. And I'm like, okay, or you could actually just feature one of the characters that already exist that is like that demographic and actually use them, instead of giving that demographic a like cheap knockoff.
I mean, well, there is a lot of characters with that representation, but as we see, they don't care for those particular characters. They want the character that they see fit for, of their liking. So, as you have Apollo and Midnighter, but you have Superbat fans for Bruce and Clark, and they ignore Apollo and Midnighter. Wonder Woman, you have Nubia or Hippolyta, but they don't care for Nubia or Hippolyta. They, advocate for Diana, which, yes, Diana is, well, to me, I would say she is Pan. She loves love. And it doesn't matter to her. She loves the heart. She loves personality, loves someone that's honest and true to themselves. So she is Pan to me. But, to emphasize on just that of her sexuality and never her story. That is the problem.
Here's the problem with that, Britt. The whole Pan thing then opens up of, why can't she be with Kara, even though Kara's significantly younger?
Now, we know those circumstances. If you are that, being pansexual does not give you the go ahead to
these people, it does, Britt.
No, I don't think, I really don't think so. That is just some people who have, a certain thought process, that's a little questionable. So you should definitely go check out their computer history, their internet history. But with people who actually understand what that means, like I do, and how that resonates, then that they should know, no, Diana means that she could love, um, let's see, mm, if you are to, I would say the most popular ship right now for her is Zatanna. She can be with someone like Zatanna, but also be with someone like Clark, because those two are good-hearted people, that certain thing. Or it could be someone like um, some otherworldly being that is, you know, of pure heart. That's just who Diana is. But of course, they would be of age.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. It's just saying, it's like I've seen too many people use that as the excuse for Kara.
Well, that's their problem.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, it's so it's like that's kind of where I kind of stand on this. It's like, look, I'm like, you're bet. It's the way I kind of see it. DC is better off. Now, here's the thing again. Fine with representation, but for the purposes of DC themselves and the character, DC is better off just coming out and saying she's straight, get over it. Because leaving this ambiguity leads to all of those crappy fans just putting up with the most heinous stuff ever. So I'm like, if you shut that down, yes, you're always going to have crappy fans. But at the very least, it's like, okay, we finally addressed that. It's done. Move on. I mean, that's the way I kind of see it at the very least.
I mean, I don't think they have to make a broad statement like that because that is um, alien alienating, her fan base. Because Diana is a queer representation. She is that character that, as I said, she loves love. She embraces everyone.
You could still say
Not.
that, but it's like the thing is, if you're talking about why not make a bold statement, they try to do that with Rebirth.
I mean, it was just one writer, which was Rucka, and his whole thing of trying to have Diana with a woman was with the women that raised her as a baby. So I don't really count that, but um, it, it's just how I guess it's executed, and it's not something that's just for a sort of self-insertion or either way, whether you are a fan of Diana and want her with this certain character, or you're a fan of this certain character and want them with Diana.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, it's just, they can't, I think it's more of showing it, because Diana's primary love interests are male characters, which is, again, primarily Clark and Steve, or Steve and Clark, whatever, however you want to put it. So that's that. I think they're already telling it by showing that, and even if they want to address her being bi, they give little tidbits here and there, and I guess they think that's it. But overall, Wonder Woman is a mainstream character.
Yeah.
And for global marketing purposes, of course, there's going to be restraint. And as you said earlier, Absolute Wonder Woman is becoming a very popular version, mainstream version, even more mainstream than the main version of Wonder Woman. So they are, you know, putting those restraints because they want global marketing. Um, but yeah, they don't have to just outright say that because that is totally unprofessional, very mean,
Mm-hmm.
and alienating. But I mean, again, they're showing it already that her primary love interests are um Stephen Clark at Clark at a distance or whatever.
Or according to some fans, Bruce. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, of course not. He's from a 20-some-year-old animated show. And even that was barely.
It's like someone in my chat was saying about how they always thought that they grew up on the DCAU and thought that's how the comics were, and I'm like, no.
I mean, I don't really blame them because at that time, though, DC did try to align the comics with the animation. It didn't work, but they did try. They did attempt to do that. So I don't really blame them for saying that.
I'll give you that. So then we get to, in conclusion, essentially Dark Knights of Steel is the epic what DC was Game of Thrones / Lord of the Rings, and it's like Dark Knights of Steel is what happens when you try and do it, but do it in a very superficial way.
Right.
At least that's the way I kind of think about it. So, Britt, any concluding thoughts on Dark Knights of Steel?
Not really. It's just, it is what it is as a story.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to, so tell me about what you thought of Green Lantern 27.
Okay, so this is the prenuptial issue of the Starbreaker arc. And it's, of course, is building a lot of high stakes here. You do have a little bit of John Stewart as the focus, him being a leader, him being having his character growth. And of course, I think that with this, it definitely feels like the synergy is getting there. You're getting a little hints of that because of the show. Kyle Rayner is still the star, I think, within the big 600th issue that came out.
He is.
But I definitely think that, John Stewart, they will probably shift to him at some point again. But you still have the maintain of the pacing, the momentum of just all of the developments. Some things do feel a little underdeveloped. It's kind of like you're trying to cram in a lot. That is one of the kind of constant dilemmas of the book, is trying to have this big ensemble, of course, because it is the whole, Green Lantern Corps or the Lanterns period. But it feels like some things kind of fall off just a little bit. Of course, it goes back in place, but that's just one thing that I noticed. The art continues to be very, very good. And yeah, it's still, you have these developments. Some things, as I said, it falls off just a little bit, it gets back on. Some things need a little bit more focus just to, show its importance. But overall, it's pretty good. This arc really emphasized on, who, of course, is important as DC's direction goes, but everyone still gets their spotlight at some point.
Yeah, and I really like how they go to the science cells, which is essentially Green Lantern jail, and basically goes, okay, if you guys don't help us, we're all going to die. Okay, if we give you guys rings, will you actually come and help us? They're like, okay. So I really dug that. I love all the, again, Zermanico's art never ceases. It never disappoints to ever make this look like a Green Lantern epic storyline here. And I definitely like a lot of the emphasis on the other lanterns and the way that this is all building toward some type of big epic story, which I really like. So pretty good. And I agree, a 7.5 I think is a good ranking there. So Storm number 8. So I like how Storm and Thor team up, and then you also have, they save the world, and then I love how Black Panther and Tony are talking, and Panther's like, Tony's like, so you're gonna go see Storm and maybe make up, and then Black Panther goes, I don't know, are you gonna I know I have a prior engagement with Emma Frost, and then Tony's like, ha ha ha, and then the arrow points to Reed and he goes, happily married, never divorced. Love that. That's really solid. And I love how, like, so Storm goes to the FBI, and we see that, like, the FBI is, like, also now employing, like, aliens and creatures and metahumans, because, of course, it would. And I like seeing, because one of the things that, like, superhero universes don't really show often is the metahumans' effect on society and, like, our institutions. So it's kind of cool seeing, like, that little bit of world building in there, because ordinarily we're just focused on who's on the Avengers or the Justice League or blah 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 blah. And then Wernick's art combined with the colors just really makes this pop. But, like, particularly, like, the one above all, how he's, like, glowing like a god because he is Marvel's god. I love the way Storm's lightning glows, and even her hair is perfect. Everything just looks really good with this one. So what do you think of Storm 8?
Of course, again, the artwork is spectacular. Yes. You do get that dynamic with Thor. Honestly, I want to see more of them.
Mm-hmm.
It is something to see. I don't read much of Marvel, obviously. But to see the integration of the X-Men and the Avengers and just all of these characters connecting, and it's not afraid to have these certain pairings and team ups and things like that. That is what I really like and enjoy, because DC did have that in Post Crisis, but now they are so conservative and so strict with, not trying to shake the table with certain pairings and team ups and stuff, that you don't really get that feel of the worlds being, integrated too much. It just doesn't feel connected as this did.
As you bring that up, I don't know if you know this, but that wasn't always the case, because what happened was, so Marvel went bankrupt back in the 90s, and they sold off the movie rights to Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Spider-Man. That's why it took us for so long to get the X-Men, the MCU. But in the comics, you would think in the comics that wouldn't be a thing. But Marvel Editorial didn't want to put emphasis on the X-Men because they could movie rights. Because it's like Disney and stuff, and like Warner Brothers only see these comic book companies as like making IPs for the movies. So at the time, this is where you have like the characters of the Inhumans, like Black Bolt and Medusa, and Marvel was trying to basically like shoo the X-Men to the side in favor of the Inhumans, because they could make Inhumans movies. They couldn't make X-Men movies and keep all the money. So previously, the X-Men were very isolated from the overall Marvel universe.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Which it's some of the worst time periods in Marvel history ever. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. So, Bat-Cat's Relationship Therapy one-shot, Wonder Woman Truth by Jeff Loeb. So, okay, let me be the first to say Chung's art is awesome. I love his art. The coloring's great. That's the redeeming quality of this book, because I do not like the way Jeff Loeb writes Wonder Woman, which is hilarious because he wrote Wonder Woman moderately well in the Supergirl book. Remember that?
Well, of course, she had different elements, which was being a mentor to Kara, and she had her relationship with Clark.
And also, this is supposed to take place after Hush 1, but why is she in her DC Rebirth costume?
Because DC is very lazy, and they don't want to, again, shake the table with the fact that their continuity is screwed.
That's the other part where I was like, I thought this was a modern day storyline. But anyway, the point of the storyline is that Catwoman steals the lasso of truth. Why? I don't think they ever really get into it. And
because Batman, actually they did.
Okay.
Okay, so the story is that Wonder Woman, for some reason, it really doesn't make sense as to why she would have the lasso and everything on display for Gotham. It was for a charity event, but it was still kind of dumb on her part.
Yeah, why would she let that out of her sight?
Yeah, she would not do that, but contrivances, whatever, to make the story work. So Bruce actually calls Selena to purposely steal the lasso to test the
Okay.
Wayne security system. And so, you know, Selena, of course, took advantage of that. Um, she she leaves or whatever. Of course, she's going to get caught, but unbeknownst to her, Joker and Harley shows up and they steal the lasso. So it goes on into this whole chase of trying to get Wonder Woman's lasso back from Harley and Joker. And at the same time, Diana's playing therapist for Bruce and Selena about their relationship because at the end of Hush, of course, they broke up. So Selena, of course, they still care about each other. We see that, you know, because Selena is doing this favor for him, and Bruce is also showing that he cares for Selena. Um, Within the story, you see narrative boxes or monologues, of Bruce and Diana where they are saying, their perspective of each other and how they are really not much alike at all. So this is definitely a one shot because they don't have much of story. You don't really get the depth of their dynamic because it's pretty much non-existent. It's very superficial. From the get-go, it's really bringing in and mentioning Clark as their middle person of why they even have this sort of interaction. And there is a certain part where Bruce is like, oh, Diana can come into Gotham and, they can change. But of course, we know that Gotham will never change.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
at the end, you see where Bruce says that Diana wants people to understand her, but he wants her to understand him. So it basically feels like it's not about understanding Diana. It's about her understanding other people. And her feelings and her perspective and everything comes second, which is not the thing to do. Um, But you see a lot of people saying, "Oh, I love this dynamic. I love their friendship, and and all of that, and how they're platonic soulmates and stuff like that." Only because Diana is again just um, the therapist and the mouthpiece for the bad cat relationship, and she also has this motherly type moment where Bruce she asks him, does he feel worthy of love or something like that? And he has the lasso, and his truth shows that he's still basically that little boy in the alley, of course, so he's, never going to get over that. And Diana assures him that he is worthy of love. But it's more so, again, the worthiness of Selena. But it's not so much as like exploring their friendship. Um, So within that also, you have Diana, of course, gets her ass handed to her by Joker and Harley. So you can definitely tell that that's very much contrived because Diana could hold her own between, of
Diana
course,
could beat them with both arms tied behind her back.
right. You also have this moment where um, Diana and Selena have this moment where she says something about boys and their gags or something, and
And
Diana
their
says,
toys, yeah, and stuff.
and she says, I hope you don't think that this is kind of like a female bonding moment. First of all, Diana would never ever say anything like that.
Even if it's Diana from like this early time period, she would never do. It's like that. Also, we see the contest again, and it's a bloody gladiatorial fight.
But yes, so
What?
going back to that, yeah,
Yeah.
if being that it's this early in the story and this is supposed to be post-crisis, this is supposed to be Perez's version of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I was about to say,
So,
Britt, this is apparently Perez's version of the story.
so yeah, seeing Diana, with the sword and the rose petals as blood, basically representation of blood, and her sisters are knocked out unconscious with blood all over them. Yeah, no, I don't know what this is, but to gloss over this and to show how honestly, Wonder Woman editorial, because this was okayed or edited by the Wonder Woman main editor. So to see that,
Wow.
so to see that a
Why
huge
am I
oversight,
not surprised?
to see that this is a huge oversight on, you know, Diana's origin, her, the way she talks and everything, and how aggressive she is, you know, it does not make sense. And especially when you're trying to do these whole, she's a role model and she's, but how is she a role model when she's depicted as being brutal to her sisters when that was never the case?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so pretty much this was very a nothing burger. It was, I really don't understand the context of it, as even with being a hush tie-in, it just does not make sense unless you are trying to have that um middle of the story type therapy session. But Wonder Woman has never been, you know, truly important to a Batman story. And you can really tell within this story that she was not truly important. Here it was just to use her as a plot device with the lasso and herself knowing that she is a compassionate person. Even Lowe actually had an interview on DC website, and he pretty much said the same thing. The only reason why he did this story was because he already did Batman and Superman.
Exactly.
So he basically,
What I was going to say. He said, I want to do something like that. And I'm like, you could have done Superman, Wonder Woman. That would have made more sense.
or being that it's the Hush universe or whatever, he wanted to have Batman and Wonder Woman because he felt like, well, that's going to complete his whole partnership thing, which it would make sense if Diana had an actual significant role as Clark has a role. You see Clark and Bruce's, brotherhood and, them as friends and why they are the world's finest. But with Diana and Bruce, they don't have any type of connection except for if you bring up Clark. If Clark is the tie-in there. And he was mentioned in this story, I think about 3 or 4 times, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So but they don't really have that connection together. And again, for Bruce to end by saying, you know, Diana wants people to understand her, but she needs to understand me, that just makes it seem like screw her feelings, or no, you need to understand me first. And to Diana's just, yeah, her feelings and her character is second. She did not really have a character here. The only thing also that people are praising is because there wasn't any type of shipping between Diana and Bruce, which of course, no, because she was a mouthpiece for to validate, you know, Batcat.
I could have told you that wasn't going to happen because it's like, if this is a sequel to Hush, I guarantee you it's not going to be like, oh, look at how awesome Wonder Woman and Batman are.
Exactly. And also again, Diana has never been in a significant part of a Batman story. So it 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 goes to show again, this being a one shot and it's over, it really doesn't say anything about their relationship, why it's important or anything like that. Again, it shows that they don't have a anything ongoing, you know. And of course Clark needs to be there. Um, and the only thing that works is either World's Finest, Superman and Batman, or Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it's just furthermore. By the way, I did see people like put a post and they're like, "Oh yeah, Wonder Woman should hang out in Gotham more often." I'm like, no. What is it about Well, I know what it is, but what is it about Batman fans that they want all the other characters to basically just be Batman characters?
Well, that's why, because Batman is the cash cow, and they want to show Batman is the more popular. We saw again in this one shot that Diana was one up by Harley and Joker. So for Diana to run around in Gotham and try and, her getting one up by Batman villains when they are pretty much street level, when we know that Diana's rogues, even if they don't get the respect that they deserve, they are still much more powerful and actually smarter than Batman rogues. So that's honestly an insult to me.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, again, the art is about the only redeeming quality of this. And at first it starts off good, but yeah, it's like if the fundamental flaw, and also, okay, so Batman hires Catwoman to test the security of the lasso. Why didn't he tell Diana?
I have no idea. Well, yeah, I have no idea.
Because again, Wonder Woman practically strangles Selena again, not acting like that. But you'd think he would tell her, "Hey, listen, I hired Catwoman just to test out the security here. If she breaks in and steals the lasso, don't worry."
Right.
Like, what? I don't understand. It's like there's so many plot holes, and it's like, here's the thing. This is take place after Hush 1. You know what's kind of interesting? It's like I think Jeff Loeb is a little worried because guess what? No one likes Hush 2.
Well, I mean, it honestly seemed very pointless. I didn't read it, but yeah.
Oh, trust me, it's very pointless. And then they're like, oh, this is only the first part of like 3 parts for Hush 2, and I'm like, what? Excuse me,
Right.
but I'm like, but it's like with this, I'm like, why does Wonder Woman have to be? This comic is the example of why I say Batman writers should never be allowed to touch Wonder Woman, because they always use her, to your point, Britt, as a therapist, as a love interest, as someone to make Catwoman jealous, or as someone for like Alfred and Robin to fawn over. And I'm like, or the Batman writers have a very skewed perception of what Themyscira looks like in the case of the top image with the blood. So I'm like, no, if you write Batman, no, sorry, I don't care if you have a pitch for Wonder Woman, you're not getting it.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry if that's discriminatory to writers, but no, let me put it this way. I really don't like it when writers use the whole, oh, I'm an artist, I have a right to tell my story. And I'm like, yeah, well, in my hopeful eventual role as DC editor, I have a role to tell you, I have a right to tell you no, because people like you have done almost irreparable damage to Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
So I'm like, definitely not. But anyway, it's like, so with this storyline, so how would you rate it? I gave it a 6 out of 10, mostly because of the art.
A 5.
Okay, it's around that time period. Because again, the art is really good. It's just like the blood stuff. It's just that was. I remember, by the way, so this comic came out a while, like last week, I think. And I remember after Britt and I recorded our last episode and stuff, I held it up to the camera off screen and I showed her that page with the blood. All I get is a WTF in the from her, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. That was my thoughts when I read that. I was like, Jeff Loeb knows that's not the origin. What if they're modifying it because of King's or the thing about the Amazons?
Well, of course. I mean, that's pretty much what happened with with New History. You really didn't get much of. I mean, you got the Clay origin, but you didn't get. Well,
that's not true. That's not true.
You did get year 1, but even that
they got rid of the immortality. I mean, no, not the immortality. They got rid of her being ancient when she forms the Justice.
Well, yeah, I know that. I'm talking about we don't really see the contest. It's more so Rucka's year 1. But again,
yeah, but even in year 1, it's not that.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Is that even with that, it feels like, yeah, they are going basically on or basis of whatever the hell Tom King's doing. And the fact that, again, the head editor is not trying to rectify or, correct any of this is very telling.
I know. That's where I'm like, again, oh my, I'm just like, what are you doing, Brittany? What are you doing? I'm just like, what? It's like the more I see this, I'm like, is there ever an occasion where a Wonder Woman book can come out and it's perfect and it actually does does the character right in the main continuity? Because I'd still argue Absolute Wonder Woman is in itself is representing the character well. It's just some fans are misinterpreting it or like shipping characters. But besides that, I felt like this is a better that like I wish that DC would actually give like the main universe Wonder Woman some actual love. And I mean, Scott did promise that like this year is supposed to be spent evaluating each book as they go, trying to determine like which ones are trying to like decide how do we fix every book on the run. And I go, well, I got a very easy way to fix Wonder Woman. Get King off it. It's really simple. I mean, am I right? Am I wrong?
Exactly. But I don't think that, well, besides Stephanie, they don't have a permanent writer, which I think that her being a permanent writer, it feels like DC doesn't want to for some reason. Even though it would be very much ideal. But yeah, that is the one thing that I think is why Tom King is still on the book. Is because yes, they have Stephanie doing, like these filler issues to maybe boost up sales, because as we see when King gets on the book, sales drop. Stephanie comes back and it just keeps going basically like a roller coaster. And I feel like until they get a solid new writer with some type of, um, a solid story, or they are ready to, give a reboot of the book starting at number one and everything like that, and do a clean sweep, then yeah, we're stuck with this. The worst thing though is that not only are we supposed to be getting um, the actress for DCU soon, but it is supposed to be Wonder Woman's 85th anniversary year, and we have not. There's nothing for her. It doesn't even feel like her 85th anniversary. Um, and that's really a shame.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, you guys could at least. Well, let me put it this way: no matter, even if they don't have any plans, if King ends up leaving around that time period, I'll count that as a win.
And the desperation that I sort of feel to have him off the book, and like I said, if they don't want Stephanie to be the main writer for some reason, which
Then
again,
just
as I
give
said,
it to Kelly and be done with it.
not Kelly, no, she has absolute no. Honestly, I would say give Mark Waid a shot.
Put Mark Waid on Wonder Woman. You know what?
Because that will give him a challenge, and also it would give him some type of redemption for, the lack of attention. But he does have glimpses where he does know how to write Diana. We saw it in the
Can you come?
in well, that was Diana pretty much, Alex Ross, I would say.
All right.
But as far as Diana herself, it was Midsummer Nightmare from Post Crisis.
Okay.
More in JLA.
Mm-hmm.
He also did, of course, World's Finest 30, the Trinity First Meeting, and he did do a Wonder Woman 80th anniversary. I think it was either the 80th or the 75th anniversary, an 8-pager. So he definitely can He's shown glimpses that he can write her, so I would say give him a shot. But other than that, yeah, you need new blood for Wonder Woman. Especially because again, she's entering a new era with this new actress, and it is her 85th anniversary.
So, what do you think of the rumors of that Eve woman being cast as Wonder Woman,
So Ava,
and not only that, that Wonder Woman will be a debut cameo in Creature Commandos?
well, first of all, it's a rumor and it's fake. Wonder Woman would not, her debut would not be in Creature Commandos as an animated character. That would just be very insulting. No, not a main character as who she is supposed to be. Um, and also, it is a rumor because Audra,
Mm-hmm.
they are keeping her role a secret. They have not confirmed her being Maxima. Honestly, Maxima is just a guess as well. Um, they have not uh, even confirmed just Maxima, period, you know. And with that said, if it is to be Maxima, this whole thing of keeping it a secret does not make sense because Maxima isn't that character to be keeping secret because the general audience does not know who she is. So having this whole mystery thing of a female character and it's a character no one knows, it's kind of like if they were to have Engineer or Hawk Girl even because of her role within Superman.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having them as some mystery role and having to try to hype that up or something.
That's a
So,
good point.
um, so with Audria, she has been said, you know, she is in the movie. She is currently training with the trainer, the with the uh with Gun's crew. So it's kind of like, okay, so who is she? Of course, it is I wouldn't even say it's a 50-50. I would say it's an 80-20 thing that Audrey is Diana and then Ava would be Maxima and she would probably voice Maxima in Creature Commandos if she's even in it or if she's even cast at all because there hasn't been any type of quote unquote rumor or um any acknowledgement of her casting. It was only just Audria.
Okay, I can give you that. Although,
So,
yeah, and it's like with Ava, I think she based upon her looks and like somewhat how she sounds, I think she could play both really well.
okay, so how she sounds, yeah, she does, it's all right. I think she can change it up just a little bit to give that more sultry, you know,
Mm-hmm.
vibe for Diana because I always imagine Diana with a sultry, like very let me
Exotic
see,
sound.
yes, exotic, but more like a melody,
Okay.
type thing. Like not so much as singing, but that sort of that very sweet singing voice though.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much how I can describe it. And very sultry, have a little um deep seduction in it as well,
I'll
you
give you
know.
that.
So something like that, for her. I think Ava can give that. Audria, I think she can give that too. Um, I would say both of them have those qualities that Gunn is probably that he's looking for. Um, Audria, he did say that she would make the perfect Wonder Woman. I think because she does have that um, melanin, as we talked about. She's
So does
also
Eva, though, I think.
a little bit, yes, she does. Um, She does have that exotic type voice. Well, both of them do. Um, The only thing that I say that would be a discourse, and I think that fans are really taking this to the extreme, is she needs to be like overly buff, like a bodybuilder or something like that, and like taller than David,
Hmm.
which does not make sense to me.
Yeah.
Diana has never been taller than Superman in comics or anything like that. She has been like a foot shorter. Um, she uh she didn't become like 6 foot until Rebirth. Even in even in New 52, I think Diana was like no, in pre-crisis Diana was like 5'8". In post-crisis she was 5'11". In New 52 she was 5'11", 6, you know,
Hmm.
but she leaned more, or 5'10", 11, and then 6. You know, it really depended on the artist for New 52, but she was never, Clark's true equal height of, he's 6'3", 6'4". Diana would be probably 6. And then in Rebirth, she was, I think they tried to make her like 6'2".
Hmm.
So, you know, and now in Absolute, they want her to be 7 feet tall. So it's kind of like, this exaggeration for Diana's height, for her being muscular, is very superficial and not necessary. As long as we have an actress that can embody Diana's spirit as how she sounds, how she acts, um, and give a performance that actually resonates with us. Like if you base her on Perez, as long as she acts like Perez's Diana, we're cool. I really don't care about a 7 feet tall muscular Diana. If she's 5'8", so what? If she's 6, so what? As long as she again embodies that spirit.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of my few times I'll give Gunn credit when someone claimed, "Are you going to have someone that's Diana's actual height?" And then he goes, "If I based my castings on only height, I would never be able to cast anyone."
Right.
It's like even when you go off of, let's say, like body build type, in that case, no man can ever play Superman because no man, unless they take like heavy steroids, is ever going to reach Superman bulk.
Right.
And it's like we're dealing with comic books where the proportions and like muscles are exaggerated because these are supposed to be like hyper like fit gods essentially. So it's like everyone's like, no, that they have to be cast this way. Part of the reason why Britt is because everyone has a certain like image of of the character in their head of the way they think they should be represented. And again, if that is not done into to people's specific like specifications, they treat it like the director or like film person kicked their puppy. Look at what happened with Snyder for the ever since Man of Steel happened.
Right.
uh, I have to say it because it's like so many people are like, oh, we're like people were practically celebrating Snyder's daughter offing herself because of the way he portrayed DC characters. Britt,
That is really just go touch grass. Like reality really blurs, you know, and people definitely need to take a breather from these paper people. They are just drawings. Like, calm down and get back in tune with reality, with real people, because no way you're going to be um, that vile and so cold-hearted against real people.
well, yeah, it's because too many people, and we've said this many times. There's so many people that treat these comic book characters like they're real people. And honestly, it just gets very concerning. I mean, even you said that there are people that said they don't want actual relationships because they have like Clark and Lois.
Yes, they are living vicariously through these characters and their relationships. That's pretty much why if you are to have Clark with anyone else besides Lois, they act like they are about to, you know, commit a crime because they are so invested in so, um, first of all, having a cult and that whole parasocial type mindset of the fan base. But again, you know, some some people just need to get off the internet for a while and take a breather.
Well, it's like not only that, you also have too many people, excuse me, too many people that like not only that, it's like everyone feels that like their idea, the version of the character that they grew up with, whether that be DCAU, DCEU, Reeve, whatever. Too many people treat it like that is the only valid version of the character. And I'm sorry, if you have a universe that has existed for like 70 to 80 to 100 years, let's say, you can't say one version is the definitive. That's why I put out a tweet a while back that says there is no definitive take on these characters because A, they've existed for like, let's say 70 years. Let's say that. Or B, they're constantly being rebooted and reinvented. So who's to say what's the definitive version of the character?
Right.
Now, that being said, if a writer deliberately says that they were inspired by a certain run, like King with George Perez, they then have to adhere to the principles of that run. They can't just straight up contradict it.
Right.
So I'm like, but so that's the difference. But it's just too many people want one version of the character to be the definitive version of the character. Like, can you imagine if we lived in a world where the comics were the DCAU like versions of the characters, Britt?
I wouldn't be a fan of them at all. So
Exactly. Me neither, because particularly as a Wonder Woman fan, that universe failed Wonder Woman, and you know, and that's the other reason why I don't really respect that universe, because in a world where they were like, you know what, we don't really know what to do with Wonder Woman, and I'm like, okay, you're next to DC Comics, call up one of the writers and have them sit you down and say, okay, so what do we have to know to understand the character? Okay, good. There you go. You could have done that.
right.
Well, wait. Guess who was a writer of the DCAU, Britt?
Go from home.
Yeah, you could have gone to her. I mean,
Well,
I know. Well. Here's the
back it up. Yeah.
I was about to say, Britt. I know that Gail Simone has her issues, but it's better than nothing.
I mean, I would rather have nothing.
And that's the difference between you and me, Britt. But all I'm saying is like, well, let me put it this way. I guarantee you that crappy episode with the armor that makes people violent would not have likely happened if someone that knew Wonder Woman was like, you can't have her like complaining about the day off stuff. And if they say, well, it's because the armor is influencing people. And I'm like, okay, well, look at the episode. She's the only one that's acting this way.
Right.
So I'm like, no, your BS excuse for the way you... And let's not even get to the fact where you literally make it. So, okay, so basically, so what's considered canon, Britt, is like the Wonder Woman from that universe got upset that she couldn't have main universe Batman. So she went to another universe and dated Lord Batman from the Justice Lords.
That was just desperate. Like, that was rock bottom desperate.
No. That was the rock bottom desperate. What was rock bottom desperate is making it so Dick Grayson left because Batman had sex with and then impregnated Barbara Gordon. That was desperate.
It was all desperate.
Canon. Well, yes, it was all desperate, 100%. So I'm like, and by the way, I double checked. All those things are considered canon to the DCAU. So I'm like, and yes, I can blame Bruce Timm because he oversaw the universe. He could have contradicted it in the stuff at any point. He could have said, I don't really consider that canon. He didn't. Because the man, for some reason, has an obsession with Batman dating Batgirl. I know it's supposed to harken back to the Comics Code era, like the Golden Age. But the problem with that is that Batgirl was of age. She was within the appropriate age for Batman. But because of that, I cannot see that Batman the same way.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they really need to stop this. But anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it. So Britt, any closing thoughts, and what have you got to what stories you want to tease us with?
Well, not really closing thoughts, I guess, on well, I'm glad that we finally did this, so I won't have to think about Dark Knights of Steel ever again.
Yeah, you're
Um,
free, Britt.
Ruler of the Beast, I would say that again, it was very much an abstract type story that DC needs more of with uh different type of art, you know, and just have different stories that really shows the full scope of the DC universe. Um, and not play favorites, you know, because when you play favorites, you limit the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as what I have, so I'm still going to do a lot more Twitter threads. Um, and of course, you can still follow this new page that I have. Um, and the Instagram is at 73.5 now. So yeah, I think we will hit 74K within either the end of this month, going into the next. But to have this going up in followers and having so much support is really like, wow, it's very much a constant. You know, people talk about Super Wonder and how bad it is, but honestly, with how people have to fans continue to show how bored they are, you know, and they like the controversy. And honestly, some of them do like Super Wonder, they just don't want to admit it. You know, I see sometimes where people say they want a Super Wonder book, but of course they say, well, not the romantic part of it. And honestly, you don't really have to have the romance because it's so natural of them being the best friends that you can read them either way. You know, it's an ambiguous relationship. So really what we want, you know, is to have that respect back for Clark and Diana's relationship and being best friends. Um, and then as far as stories, well, I am almost done. I'm doing the last minute edits on Odyssey 3 or Odyssey Chapter 3. This one is, yes, it's long, but I have a lot of revamps within this and just going on with the big, you know, something happens within chapter 4. And this will be um, 6 chapters, very long chapters, but this part 1 of Odyssey is 6 chapters. So that's why it pretty much took so long to have chapter 3 done. Shelter will also be done once I'm done with this editing. So pretty sure that I will be posting both of these at the same time with sometime within this month. I did complete chapter 1 of Diana's adopted daughter. And again, every time it takes a while, I have to be satisfied with the chapter.
Yeah,
And with that first chapter, I am very satisfied to be able to connect this new OC daughter of mine um, to Diana's world and also integrate her within just the DCU period.
so
You
you're
know, that
putting more thought into this character than Tom King did with Trinity, is what you're telling me.
well, of course, we have to,
Well, it's
especially
like it's not like that's a high bar, right?
right. But yeah, that is always our goal is to basically make the concepts that DC fumble, we make them better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I will be uploading pretty much all 3 within this month.
I find it hilarious how like our fan fiction like philosophy is fixing DC's mistakes.
True, true.
That will never not be funny for me. But anyway, and then Britt and I will be putting together a schedule for our May episode soon. So we'll see you guys. So we'll let you guys know when we get that together. But anyway, stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lame, and Steve Trevor is a sack of really moldy potatoes. Zoe is a max about for life. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.